You're listening to episode 124, part 2 of Laura's story, a son with congenital leukemia. Hello, my friends. I'm so happy that you're here today. If you have not already gone to listen to episode 123, part 1 of Laura's story, please go back and do that first, because understanding how this all transpired and happened in the first 24 hours of her son's life is so important. We are going to move on now from the end of part 1, so I'm going to stop talking so we can get back to our conversation with Laura. Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you guys know that if you are a parent, a child life specialist, or professional working with children, you're going to want the hospital or physician's office or urgent care that you take your kids to have the Child Life On-Call app. It is an evidence-based tool designed to empower children and families during medical experiences. And 100% of the child life specialists who have used this app believe that it can help with expanding child life's reach beyond the bedside. And 100% of child life specialists believe it helps parents feel more empowered in their child's care. Learn how to get the Child Life On-Call app for your facility or doctor's office by going to childlifeoncall.com/partners. Again, thank you so much for being willing to spend another little bit of your time with me. But I think
Of course, and thank you to you too.
Oh gosh, yeah. And I think the last we ended on is Trey had been transferred over to CHOP, and you saw the the ambulance driver in the cafeteria.
Yeah. So we're still on day one.
We're still on day one. But like the more I think about it, like oh gosh, there was so much that happened. How could we not spend that much time on it, So I'm very glad we did.
And I kind of thought that too. I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to get to in the next episode? And then one of my girlfriends was like, how did it go? And I'm like, well, we got through day one. And she looked at me and goes, what?
You're like, yes.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It just kind of happened like that. But also, like, that's the story. And you can't, I said, everything because you were with me for those 8 months.
Yeah.
People who don't listen are like, wait a minute, they're going to have like gaps in the story. You can't have gaps in the story.
Absolutely. You can't have gaps. And we're not going to. We're going to make sure there's no gaps. So if you want to just kind of, whenever you're in the mental space, but just what I would really like to focus on for this conversation is kind of getting into this new life that you have where your baby's in the hospital getting chemotherapy. That's something you didn't expect. And you've got other children at home, and kind of how you navigated that. If that rings any bells, or we can start a different direction too. I'm very open.
No, I think that's really good because a lot of people look at me and they're like, where do you, what? And I'm like, yeah, it just kind of worked, but let me tell you how. And then I tell them and they're like, huh? Because what a lot of people, what their initial notion is like, okay, you lived at the hospital for 7.5 months. And while we felt like we did, we actually didn't. I actually didn't spend any nights there at all. I left my baby there every single solitary day that he was there. I left him every single night. Every day I left him. I kissed him goodbye, and I came in better person than I was the day before because I was good to myself to come take care of my son. And I maximized my time every day by his bedside. But every day I went home. Every single day I left. And then what I would do is I would wake up in the morning really super bright and early. And I would, at first I was very tired from like the C-section and whatnot. And slowly, I started becoming more autonomous, driving myself to the hospital. But I treated it like a day job, right? Like, I would literally wake up in the morning, take care of myself, have my coffee, have my breakfast, eat as much food as I possibly could, I was like a cave woman. I would eat as much as I possibly could to sustain my energy throughout the entire day, so I didn't have to leave his bedside and go do something else. I could spend all my time with him, so that when 2:30 came around and I had to leave to go pick up my son from the bus stop, I spent all my time with Trey. So I would drive down every morning and come back every afternoon. And I would just fake it till I made it.
What was it like for your older children getting off the bus? I know, you're probably gone more than you're used to, tired a little bit more than usual, maybe other people helping out with pickup and drop off, and their world changes a little bit too. Do you remember anything kind of about how your son dealt with that, when you would pick him up from the bus?
So when I would pick him up from the bus, sometimes I would be standing there sobbing hysterically. How did I just do that? How did I leave one baby and now I'm here to pick up the other? And I'd see the bus turn the corner and the bus door would open and his little face would fly off the bus. Mommy, hi. I'm like, hey, buddy, how's it going? Mommy, are you crying? I am crying. I am crying, Luke. It was real for them. I miss the baby, but guess what? I'm so happy to see you. And then I would kind of dry my tears, hold his little hand as tight as I possibly could. And I was present in that moment, right? Because I'm never getting that time back with him. And I would act like kind of everything was fine. And then I would be like, all right, buddy, we're going to go home. We're going to check your folder. We're going to do your homework. I'm going to definitely be perplexed by the instructions on the homework.
We'll wait for your father to get home.
Yeah,
to handle that
definitely
question.
this whole cotton paste thing. We'll just nail it out, and then we're gonna get dressed for t-ball, and then after t-ball is bedtime, right? And then my daughter would come home. My parents would really help us out. My dad would pick my daughter up from daycare and bring her home, or my mom would pick her up from daycare and bring her home. And that was normal for them. Like, my parents helping out was normal for them. And that was also really special for them. So what we did is, like, it wasn't like a stranger was waiting at the bus or picking them up from daycare. It was like a special person. And we made it special time with that special person. We made all of this. Yeah, we made all of these one-off situations when we were in that, like, scheduling pinch with the baby. Like, listen, flying down 95 every day to go see the baby and come back flying up 95. Like, if 3 raindrops hit someone's windshield and they swerved and God forbid something happened, you're sitting in 40 minutes of traffic.
Yeah.
I have no new news for you other than you sit there. I can't tell you how many times this happens.
Right.
Here's to the people who do that commute every day willingly.
Yeah.
I can't figure that out.
Oh,
but here's to that. But mine was unwillingly. But I just managed. Right. And I would, you had your people who you could call. You had that trusted inner circle of friends, family. I have great neighbors up the street. Like, hey, I'm going to be home in 5 minutes. Can you just grab Luke off the bus and, like, make that 5 minutes really liberating for him? And that person on the receiving end was always so happy to help. Remember before you asked me the question in the first episode, like, what can these people do for you?
Yeah.
These people can wait for moments like that, those SOS moments. Hey, right. Can you grab Luke off the bus? Sure, no problem. Consider it done. That's it. End of communication. Text me when you have him. No problem. Like, short, sweet. You have to consider the situation that I'm in. I'm in flying down 95, flying up 95, taking care of the baby, advocating for him for the day, whatever may be going on. If he's sick and vomiting with chemotherapy, did a slew of doctors just walk in as I was walking out, leaving for the day, and I needed to actually meet with them. Like, all of these things are so stressful, and all of these things are so unknown unless you're the person in them.
So true.
So if you're that person,
I like that.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. How did you keep your 2 kiddos at home engaged with Trey while he was in the hospital?
That's a super special question. And you know what? I was really hoping that you would ask me that because it's super emotional for me. We made it fun for them. And I'm going to tell you what, it was horrible for me. We made it so fun for them. My son, Luke, so Claire was 3 at the time. So her memories are, Luke remembers everything. He's like, Mommy, remember that ice cream machine? And I'm like, yeah, that was a pretty boss ice cream machine, dude. Like the ice cream machine in the cafeteria was legit. You could like pick your mix-ins and then we would see nurses and I would be like, Luke, go say hi to them. I bet you they remember who you are. Like we would just make it a positive experience. And then sometimes what I would do is I would take like Luke down with just me and Luke and I would make it his special time with me. And we would go on a date to the cafeteria and I would let him eat like a pile of 3-year-old mozzarella sticks. And kids thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. So in the perspective of a child, you can make anything fun, right? Like
Absolutely.
That actually was the worst for me. Like talk about being at the bottom of the ocean. But I was just present with my son. And then I would be like, all right, buddy, it's time to go to the cafeteria. Do you want to go? Yeah? We ready to get some mozzie sticks? Okay. And like, we would just make it fun. And it's funny you asked me that particular question. I remember there was this one doctor and she was giving Trey anesthesia and we were in the CAT scan room. I remember it as clear as day. And I wish I knew who she was. And Luke was just getting ready to go back to school. And it was those weird days, like at the end of summer, but before school, but camp was out, but school wasn't in. So he's like tugging on my arm, Mommy, can we please go get ice cream? And I'm like, dude, Trey just has to fall asleep. And it's taking him forever to fall asleep. And the anesthesiologist was looking at me and she goes, you know, you remind me of my mom. And I started I just looked at her perplexed, like I started crying. And she goes, your son, and she was like watching me like diligently, like manage my baby who's falling asleep and getting a CAT scan because he has a fungal infection in his Broviac spine and the back of his eyes needs to be checked. And I'm happily on display for this 5-year-old who's, if he tugs one more time on my bag and asks me if we can go get ice cream, I'm gonna lose my mind. Here's where I'm at the corner of.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was watching me and she couldn't take her eyes off of me. She was like fascinated by me. And I didn't realize it until like afterwards. And she said, my brother had kidney cancer as a child. And my mom managed his cancer the exact way you are. And I've been watching you for 20 minutes now. And the baby still isn't asleep after getting a syringe of propofol that's larger than a pool noodle. And I'm exhausted by this. And he still wants ice cream. And she looked at me and she said, somehow you're still standing and you're happy and radiant and joyful. And it's taking everything within inside of you. And I looked at her and I go, you're right. It is. So we had a nice conversation after Trey woke up. She came back to the recovery room to see me. And I started talking to her again. And she said, I just remember walking through these halls and skipping and my grandparents bringing me and it being joyful. And I said, yeah, that's what happens. My parents pitch in. They help us to the fullest extent. They're like a second set of parents to my kids. They do everything they can. And they too made it joyful. And I would see my Claire skipping down the hall with my parents, holding both of their hands. Like we just made every moment happy. And like we were supposed to be doing this. Like it was supposed to be regular. Like you're supposed to be spending your summer vacation in the hospital watching your little brother be put to sleep for all of these diagnostic tests. And supposed to be bugging your mom for ice cream from the ice cream machine from the cafeteria. Like this is supposed to be happening. And this anesthesiologist confirmed this grace in this moment. And I'll never see her again probably, but I owe her everything for this out-of-body experience where I felt like I was like functioning on another orb and nobody possibly knew what I was going through. And she just was like, no, you're awesome. You remind me of my mom. And I was like,
Wow.
really? I
I
mean, what a privilege. Like,
That's incredible. I think
yeah.
there's like two big points I'm hearing from your story. And the first one is the anesthesiologist and the impact that these small statements can do to, either hurt or make things worse or infinitely make them better. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what she did.
I remember when she came to the recovery room and she still continued to talk. And I said, how is your mom? Does she worry every day?
Yeah.
Is she like in the lifer bin like I am?
Yeah.
And she looks at me and goes, yep, she's there forever.
Yeah.
And you will be too.
Wow.
Lifer bin. Lifer.
Yeah, you're changed. You're morphed. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I got the tat and everything to prove it.
There's before and then there's after, and that's what there is.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm sorry. What was your second reflection? I want to hear this.
Oh, I just, in thinking about the impact of, let's say Luke and Claire going to visit Trey and how important that relationship is. But in that opportunity for Luke to have that time with Trey, like the strengthening of the bond between you and Luke and you and Claire, it's just this whole dynamic of a family system that is just strengthened. And, when I think about siblings, I think about that line, like if you can imagine a triangle, right? So we've got Luke and Claire, and then they have a line to Trey, and then they have a line to you. But the bond between you and the kids that you're bringing up to hospital or you're talking about, you're only strengthening that relationship too, not just the one between siblings. And I don't think that I've ever thought about it from that perspective before, but you had the ability to make that happen even without realizing that you were doing it. Is that now
Absolutely.
He's going to trust
It's
you.
so
He's going to
crazy.
know you can go through hard things. He's going to know, like, it's just amazing what that did.
I tell Luke every day, who am I proud to be? And he looks at me and says, my mommy. And I'm like, you're right, buddy. My mommy. And I started telling him that when my son was in the hospital because he didn't realize what he did for me, right? I would bring just Luke. Claire was a little too little at the time. She was like a baby. She was cute though. Like she gave a pleasant distraction.
Yeah.
She
didn't care what you were going through.
Yeah. Luke is my feeler. And he would be like, Mommy, it's okay. He would like rub my hair, rub my face. And then I would have my two boys in my arms. And yes, he was playing his tablet or whatever, but I didn't care. He was laying in my arms. But the bond between Luke and I, he could feel every single thing I was feeling.
Yeah.
And you're right. I didn't really realize it until you put it like that triangular shape where it re-strengthens and each length is exactly the same. And one side isn't going to give. None of them are going to give.
No.
And my Luke did that for me, and then John and I did a lot of separating too, where like, it was like survival mode where we would divide and conquer. Okay, you take this one and I'll take that one and I'll go to the hospital. And then, it was like the coordination was chaos, but it always worked.
Yeah. Strengthening that marital, you don't really have a choice. Like you have to figure out and get strong or you just won't. Like there's no bending. There's either breaking or strengthening.
Yeah. P.S. You're stuck with me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so I would love to know a little bit about, you talk about the 7.5 to 8 months that he was in the hospital, that homecoming, and then what life has been like since he's gotten home.
Life has been fickle. Life has been real. Life has been fickle. I mean, we came home and you would expect like the homecoming piece to be like this ultra celebratory moment. It was actually very quiet. It was a rainy day. We pulled in the driveway with the 5 of us in the car. My mom was home, and we shut the door behind us. We shut the garage door behind us. We didn't want anyone to like know we were home with them. And I walked through the door, and my mom said to me, "My baby has her baby home."
No.
And we both just cried and cried and cried. And I said to my mom, "Will I sleep tonight?" And she said, "I think you might."
Did you?
Because remember, I did.
Yeah.
I think I did. But it was just so nice. I remember pulling him out of his car seat, and I ran up to his bedroom, and I was like holding him tight. I still remember this. And I sat down in this beautiful lazy boy chair that John and I bought when I was pregnant. We were like, you know what? We're going to be ballers this time around. We're not going to buy one of those uncomfortable rocking chairs. We're going to buy a lazy boy. I was like, I'm going upstairs to sit with the baby and the lazy boy first.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a
So
long awaited. Oh.
And I just remember sitting in that chair the first couple of days he was born, and I would sit, and that's where I would pump. And I just remember looking around at all his stuff that I had ready when I was pregnant. Like, you know, you get the diapers out of the package, and the wipes, and the warmer, and the onesies are all folded. And I had since long put everything away since he had been home from the hospital. But then it was like another coming home from the hospital that I had to put like his 6-month clothes out because we're getting ready for a 6-month-old newborn.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just remember sitting in the chair that day and holding him and just sobbing. Because at one point, I felt very alone. And let me tell you how I felt alone. People were rejoicing and celebrating for us. And it was amazing. But they saw me crossing a finish line. Right? They thought it's over for her. It's over. Thank God he's home. He never has to go back. But guess what? It was just the start of my next marathon of worry. To the next checklist of items that were worrisome, and that I had to, I had to get him his little circumcision, and he had to get a heart operation after he came home. So there was a lot of things still left on his to-do list that were just as traumatizing as the first day as if he was born. So everyone else in the world had a sigh of relief. And I felt very lonely, very, very, very lonely in those moments.
What an important misconception for you to identify for others who are listening right now, because I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way.
Oh, when you are a mom of a kid who has chronic health issues, it's just the start to the next marathon. That's what a lot of people don't know. It's this situation where there are blinders like you wouldn't believe. People, oh, thank God it's over. It's almost like a checklist. It's like off their checklist to stop checking on you. Like, oh, thank God I can stop doing that and texting you every Monday morning to see how things are going. Woo! Is that hard for you? I'm being dramatic, but you see what I'm saying.
Yes,
right?
You're cracking me up, but you're so right.
People only really care from the bottom of their hearts, but it's like, when are you going to lose? This ain't over for me.
Right.
But this is not over for me. This is just the start of the next marathon. I actually only get to sit in this chair for like 3 to 4 minutes before I have to pee or pee my pants, one or the other, and then tend to a child, getting them a snack or a milk. So can you give me a break? It's not over for me.
Having your kids all under one roof then also has more challenges, right? You have 3 kids now, getting everybody to their stuff, and you're still worried sick all the time about Trey. What kind of toddler did he grow into be? And did you see any effects, I would say, like psychosocially, about what he had gone through spending his first more than half a year in a hospital?
Psychosocially, he is the most emotionally intelligent little boy I have ever met. And he has this charm about him where he knows a good egg when he sees one. And I feel like it was because I left him in the hospital every night. And I would come back the next morning and I would look at him and I would know if he was with a nurse that he loved. I know it. He would be like happy, kicking the feet. And then if he was with somebody who he didn't like, I'm like, uh-oh. Did you not like them? Okay. Mommy will fix that. And this, like, still applies to this day. Like, some people are like, what's up, Trey? Give me a fist time, buddy. And he walks right past them, like, so cocky. And I don't even apologize for him because guess what? He knows you're a bad egg before I do. He just has this sixth sense about him that's absolutely the funniest thing. And he has this charm and this wit. And, you know, he's behind on his milestones. Spoiler alert. Because he spent this 8 months in the hospital, he doesn't really have the vocabulary and the communication skills. So he finds these other ways of communicating his needs or lack thereof, right? And it's so funny because everyone jokes that the first one, you know, you measure the amount of soap you put on the washcloth when you have your first child. And then your second one, you're like, oh, they'll live. And then your third one, you're like, oh, dear God, not those Cheerios. Those have been there for weeks. Go to the other side of the kitchen floor. They're like raised by a pack of wolves. So he does have a little bit of that in him where John and I sometimes look at him and we're like, he'll survive. He's been through worse. Like rolls down the hill of mud. He's got paint all over his face. We're like, when's the last time we fed him? Like, I don't know. He's been through worse.
Oh, it's so funny.
But he really does. He has this like survival mode hilarity where he's like, this cute toddler who's like a curly mess with deep dimples, and he'll just blow right past you if he thinks you are a bad egg at all in the least bit of ways.
I wish I could meet him. He sounds amazing.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. He also, you know, like if we're out in public or something, it's just funny how everyone really everyone thinks their child is special, right? But I have two other normal, healthy, well-developing children, and they are magnetic in their own way. But when you have one who's just magnetic as Trey is, you can say it loud and proud. He has a charm and a wit where people who don't know us and don't know our story and don't know anything about me or anything about him, they'll stop me dead in my tracks and they're like, there's something special about him. And sometimes I have the space to say, yeah, you're right. He was actually born with leukemia. He's a 1 in 5 million little kid. He's healthy and well. He too won the lottery. It's a privilege to be his mother, and I'll walk along.
Wow.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'm like, yeah, you're right. No, you can't have fruit snacks. Gotta go. Bye.
Yeah.
So you may catch me in a normal moment, or you may catch me in this like nostalgic, magical moment where he's having this like charismatic, charming unicorn moment. And so am I. And I have, and I'm at one with that feeling, and I give myself the grace and the kindness to myself to say, and I am privileged to be his mother, and I keep walking. Well, thank
he's
you.
privileged to have you as his mother. I think there is just not a better person in the world that could do what you've done.
Thank you.
And speak about it so openly. And I know it's not easy to sit here and revisit a lot of that.
It's very therapeutic to talk about it as if it's in the past, but connect it to right now moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to hear just
No,
a
no,
couple more
you're
questions.
fine.
I won't keep
Come
you for that
on,
much
Chatty
longer.
Cathy over here, eyes
Um,
open, mouth going.
um, what what is this follow up like? So for congenital leukemia that's treated and you're home and you don't have to get chemo anymore, there's 6-week scans, 6-month scans. What is your follow up like after
Well, so
that
our
kind of
follow-up
diagnosis?
were a lot of other outstanding health issues that weren't the forefront of his problems for reasons of hospitalization. Like I said, he had to get a lot of elective things done, and then he had to get eye surgery more recently, and he's had to have like braces and glasses and a few it's the developmental issues that are a lot. That's where that lifer card comes in, where some people think it's over, and it's like, well, if you only knew, he has like 4 doctor's appointments this week and surgery follow-ups, and so it's convoluted and complex, but I keep it all straightened out, and I'm so lucky I have the support system that I do, because if he still has he's got an oncology visit on Friday. It's extremely emotionally taxing, but here we are. And so he has an audiology follow-up on Friday too. So it's just keeping everything straight and in line. I have date books and I have notebooks and I follow up when I'm supposed to. And a lot of the things it's almost like I was conditioned when he was in the hospital to commit all of these things to memory. The nurses in the hospital will turn around and be like, how do you remember stuff like that? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know, but it's been 4 weeks since this medicine started, so we're supposed to recheck pressures at this exact time. And they're like, huh? Like, how do you
Yeah, it's like a survival skill that you
what?
had to have.
I'm like, look, listen, I didn't brush my top and bottom teeth today. Don't you dare judge me. There's probably deodorant only on one armpit, but damn it, he is due for a recheck of his right ventricular sided pressures today after the start of that medication. Don't mess with me. Don't mess with me. And the nurses would be like, damn. They're like, couple steps back. That's what's up. Haven't
like,
brushed my hair in
up.
4 weeks, but back up.
Oh, that leads me to my last question for you. And that is, what have you learned about yourself that you think Trey and Luke and Claire and this whole experience has taught you?
That you have to take care of yourself before you take care of anybody else. You have to. You absolutely have to. Some people call me clinically insane for waking up at 4 a.m. every day, working out, meal prepping, eating right. Some people say, you're just skinny, you're this, that, and the other. No, I'm not. I have complete control over something. I redirect what I can control. So that is what I teach my kids. If you redirect what you can control about yourself, which for me, it's been a journey to wellness, right? My diet, my exercise, keeping all of that in check and on point. My mom jokes that I could push a car down 95 and it not even be in neutral.
That's awesome.
She's kind of right. Yeah, she's kind of right. But it really has, the outside strength has given me inside strength. And if you could just focus on one thing that you could do every day that is for yourself. And my kids even know, Mommy, did you work out today? I'm like, no, I didn't work out today. As I open the basement door to our creepy unfinished basement that's filled with shelves of, 12 years of stuff. And I just go and I have my space and my time for myself. It's an hour. It's 40 minutes. It's 30 minutes. Right? If you can dedicate that time to yourself, when you are done doing that 20, 30, 40 minutes or hour, whatever it is, whatever you have that time for. Sometimes I only go down and have 20 minutes to myself. But it's still that. It's still that. And I'm still present for that amount of time. and then I come up the stairs and I'm an entire new person. But I have taken what I learned from the baby in the hospital, where I take that time to myself, go home, eat my food, go, use my bathroom, pick my kids up from the bus stop, all of those things. I didn't know it, but I was taking care of myself, right? And then when I would go back to the baby the next day, be it the second day or 8 months later, I was better to myself. So I was a better mom to my kids.
I love that. And I'm sure it was not easy at the beginning to give yourself that permission to spend any time on yourself. And
girl,
yeah,
you have to do it. And you know what?
Yeah.
A lot of what really helps me as well on my journey is checklists. Like if I just wrote it on the checklist to work out and go for a walk, those combined two things on the checklist were 20 minutes apiece. It was 40 minutes. It wasn't really that, laundry, this, that, the other. And if I just did those checklists and I controlled those 4 or 5 things, although I couldn't control what happened the rest of the day, I could do those things. And then I started adding a positive affirmation. You want to know what I do every morning still to this day? And I don't think I've told this to anyone but you. And I am privileged to tell you this moment. I wake up and I give myself a high five. You woke up, Laura, high five. I do. And it sounds...
I love that, Laura.
It sounds so corny. And there are people hysterically laughing. And those people that are hysterically laughing know that I am doing it every single morning. Every morning. High five. Hey, girl.
I love that. One of my favorite books, it's called Good Morning, I Love You. I think it's by Shauna Shapiro. And she does that every morning. She doesn't do a high five, which I like, but it matches your energy. It's right on brand for Laura, for sure. She wakes up, she puts her hand on her chest and she says, good morning, I love you. And it's that self-love that like, yes, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm saying it out loud.
I can do it.
And I think that is so cool.
Because let me tell you, walking through that hospital, when you feel like you're the only person on planet Earth whose kid was born with cancer, and now you're here and you're like walking through the lobby of the hospital and everyone else is in like this happy movie and you're on this like foggy orb. You need that moment to start the day, that high five. Hey, girl, hey. Because everyone else is walking past you at this rapid rate and they all have somewhere to go. And you're like, just another cancer mom grabbing some Starbucks. Yeah, headed back to my kid's room for another round of chemo. Hey, this isn't normal.
Oh, well, you are making so many other people smile and laugh and feel things through your words. So thank you endlessly for all of this time.
And if anyone wants to call me or email me, you can, I don't have a social media presence, but you can call me any day you want, Katie, and we can talk about all the things I do on a daily basis.
I love it. And I'm curious about you not having a social media presence. Is that purposeful? Tell me more about that.
It is, yeah. I just, that's not how I update people in my life that I love. And I talk to people every day who I love or not. And that's just how it is for me. I just not an over. And it's funny because I'm going to go ahead and tell you something that you're going to belly giggle at. I'm not an oversharer. And I think that when people overshare on social media, they're looking for this like outside validation. And I kind of just don't need that in my life. Because I find...
yours is internal.
I find this validation right here. And I'm pointing right to my ticker, right here. Yeah. Because listen, it would have been nice in the beginning had we had some sort of like social media. John and I both don't have a social media presence. Some kind of like social media presence to like update people or blast people or like, that would have been helpful because in the very beginning, we sort of suffered from communication fatigue of like, how's the baby doing? What's the update? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And we just I just shut that down because listen, it was almost like someone was holding a gun to my head and said, well, you have to run a marathon right now. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to conserve every possible morsel of energy. So you can't possibly expect me to answer every single one of these people who loves me to infinity and beyond, but I just can't possibly. So know that too. If you're somebody
Absolutely.
who's checking on somebody, you've got to give them the grace to either respond or not respond. And that's okay too.
That's always, I love that. I mean, my mom taught me this practice, but at the beginning of every text, it's like, do not feel the need to respond. I'm saying this because I want to say it to you. You ignore it, delete it, but just that little bit of grace. There's no expectation after this is sent.
Exactly. That's amazing.
And guess what? When they don't respond back and say thank you, or I feel almost better when there's no response, because there's that true friendship, relationship, honest, like, you don't have the capacity to, I don't expect you to.
And that person who received that knows that from your soul. Right? And you know what the greatest button of all time is? They'll hold the button down on the iPhone and give it like a heart so that they know you got it, but that was your response. Greatest thing ever, girl. Oh, I overused that.
Yes.
Saw it. Done.
As you should. It's
My
there.
trauma therapist taught me that. Those people need a response from you. You just hold it down and just heart it. Done, girl. Off the checklist. And it's true, because you can't carry that burden with you. And it's not your job.
Well, I wish I could just talk to you forever and ever and just do weekly check-ins, but you've told me what you're up to, and
well, you can.
It's got to be good enough for me. Well, thank you again so much. And if people want to reach out to me, I can get you connected with Laura so that you can follow up on her email. So I'll just be that go-to person. And I highly recommend doing that. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome, Katie. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.